Okay, so thank you for sticking with us this afternoon. I wear many hats, so if you're on Facebook, or your wife's on Facebook, or your team captain's on Facebook, I will be friending you so that you can see your pictures, okay? We will be live streaming large portions of the safari until I can no longer speak, and then I'll make one of my children live stream. And right now I'm working on it so you can actually see your boat number, you'll get to see your finish. So do not make me cry, because if you finish after 1 p.m., I cannot be held accountable for what I'm saying on the live stream, because it was very emotional, and it was my first time. So please get it by 1. My other hat I wear is I'm the secretary of the Texas Canoe and Kayak Racing Association. Morgan this year is the president. She's going to wave at everybody. Hi, Morgan. So we have no affiliation with the Texas Water Safari, unless we're wearing one hat or the other, but we are a sponsor as of last year, so we're really proud of that. We host a series of championship races across the state, and we also host, just as a benefit for the community, a calendar on our website with all the small races that happen during the year. The MAC races do the full length of the San Marcos River, and we have information about those on our website if you're not on Facebook. If you are on Facebook, join one of the Facebook forum groups. ATX Paddlers, DTX Paddlers, HTX Paddlers, and the Martindale Athletic Club. So we post a lot of information on there. But TCKRA is a 501c7 club. It's about $20 a year to join as a single person. We do a river cleanup, which is coming up in March. And part of being a part of this paddling community is stewardship and taking care of the river. And Virginia Parker's here too, and she can give away, but I'm wearing the San Marcos River Foundation sweatshirt. And so there's a lot of groups that try to take care of our river. And the river is dirty from people dumping their beer cans and all that stuff in there. And so do a mini river cleanup when you're doing a training run. Pick up some of the garbage. Don't leave anything yourself, okay? And I hope that you'll consider joining the TCKRA today, support us in our stewardship efforts, and come join us at some of the smaller races. Meet some more paddlers. Look at their boats. Ask them for tips. The one thing that you can guarantee across the board is that paddlers want to talk about paddling. And we love talking about safari. So come out to the small races. There's a race on Town Lake tomorrow, the Town Lake race number 4, hosted by John Waltzell. And it's just up in downtown Lake in Austin, so come join us. So if you join TCKRA today, we are having a drawing for 3 door prizes, all those up front, which is a food bag that you can hand off your team captain. It's got some electrolytes in it, some fuel replacement, things like that, and an ice sock, which we've not talked about yet. Holly with Paddle Style has donated some ice socks. So if you join today, $20, you can scan the QR code. It's $30 for the family, and you can put it on auto renew, so you never have to think about it again. We'll just keep charging you. Like I said, $20, it's nothing. We have a banquet at the end of the year, so we hope you join us. Okay, taking that off and putting my TWS hat on.
All right, so this afternoon, we have several different people who are going to talk with us. Oh, we pointed out Virginia, wave your hand. And I didn't mention something this morning. Morgan, raise your hand again. So in 2019, Morgan and Virginia, along with Caitlin and Mary, were in the boat that now holds the women's record overall in Safari. 4th place overall. To the best of my knowledge, it's the only time the women's team has come in sub 40. I really think it was all due to their team captains, but, you never know. And Virginia also, I think this is right, still holds the women's overall record, solo. And she's going to come give us a brief little spiel about Smurf, and she's going to talk about some of the things you do to prep for the race, and for the ladies who are going to race, she's going to kind of hit on some, I used to say women's issues all the time, and somebody told me that it really wasn't a good thing to say, but I don't know what else to call it. So lady stuff. Okay, and so I don't have to introduce everybody. Gaston, raise your hand. Gaston Jones, 19 overall finishes, 5 overall wins. Couple of solo wins overall. So he's going to talk about food and drink stuff later. He paddled twice in the parent-child division with it. 3 times. No, twice in the parent-child division. You weren't a child the next time. So careful how you say that. And let's see, and Andy and Spencer are going to talk to us. Spencer's finished twice. Andy's finished 3 times. They have the best hair in the water safari. I'm just saying. And so from there, we'll start Virginia. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
I might be dealing with children a little bit. But
Maybe you should talk
So
about
this
that.
session will be going over a lot of different
and I should
issues.
say, I made fun of you people who were too lazy to come here today. For those of you who are out of state, I get it. Unless you live in Oklahoma, in which case we're really glad you stayed out of state. I'm just kidding. Nobody from Oklahoma knows how to paddle, I don't think. Okay, here you go, Marty.
Okay, so just remember, speak into the microphone. If anyone can't hear on the live stream, please let me know.
all right, so I'm Virginia Parker. I am addicted to the water safari, but I'm also the executive director for the San Marcos River Foundation. And I'm hoping to get more and more of the water safari folks involved in the River Foundation. We send out a free newsletter. We've been working for over 35 years to keep the river looking as pretty as it does. And with all the development headed this way, it's a pretty big job right now. So if you're interested, I'm going to have a little sheet where you can put your email address, and I'll sign you up for our email. I'm going to set this on the floor. They don't want that on the table. Hopefully, for who in here is this your first time?
Oh, goodness.
Okay, this is so fun. All right, so if you think it's a bucket list item for you and you're going to do this once, you might be right, but most likely you're going to finish, get hooked, and come back. So hopefully what we tell you today will help you complete your first water safari. But at the end of the day, you and your team captain have to make decisions along the way. There are going to be points where you want to quit. There are going to be points where you think you don't want to continue. It's your team captain's job to keep you going, unless of course there's something medical going on. So take everything we say with a grain of salt, but we have done this a couple times, so we do kind of know what we're doing. Okay, so the water safari is my favorite topic, and I found this little note sheet that I probably wrote 5 years ago when I was doing another Novice thing, and so it's kind of fun to go back and look. I'm going to talk a lot about like body maintenance, and then the female fun, and then Gaston's going to talk about nutrition and hydration, but I'm going to tell y'all, like, to keep your sanity. And we can tell you all day long that you're going to get loopy, you're going to hallucinate. You don't know what that's like until you're doing it. So, in order to... So, nutrition and hydration is the best possible way for y'all not to lose your minds. My first year down the river, Holly Orr had given my partner and myself lessons, and she was pregnant, and she would look at us and say, more electrolytes, just more electrolytes. And I'm not kidding, like 20 minutes later, we would feel better. So make sure that when you're listening to Gaston, you're paying attention about the nutrition and the hydration. So, if they haven't said it already, things to spend money on, definitely lessons. If you don't know, like if you don't feel super comfortable in a canoe, that's like step number 1. You don't want to break the boat. But as far as your body goes. Nutrition, hydration, but also, you know, how are your hands doing? I have found the drier I stay, the better I am. That's a little bit tricky when it's 105 out and you're burning up. So there is a balance between staying cool and also staying dry. If you get down to Victoria and you need to sit in the water for 5 minutes, do it. It is the best way to cool your whole body down. I would not recommend throwing ice on your head. I feel like it shocks your body. So if you are too hot, get in the water and sit there for 5 minutes. I personally really like vitamin E oil on your hands. We were down in Belize, Morgan was with me, and I told one of the female competitors that trick. I was like, oh, put vitamin E on your hands. Well, the paddle flew out of her hands. So there's also a balance to how much vitamin E you want to stick on your hands. Whatever you do, or whatever you plan to do in the race, you want to train like that. Whatever food you want to take, whatever things you want to do to help your, butt feel more comfortable. You want to do that all over the next 4 months so that you can really work out the kinks. So I would say the number one prep is boat skills. Whatever you can see between now and safari, go and see it. There are clearly some spots that are a little bit trickier. I would say the San Marcos, for the most part, is trickier than the Guadalupe. So you definitely want to see down to Palmetto. The MAC races are a great way to do that. But when you hit Gonzales, it's going to be dark. And so seeing Gonzales to Hoheim once, especially now, get a long run in, see how your seat feels, make tweaks to your seat. That's going to be really helpful too. And then if you see it during the day, when you get to Gonzales in the race and it's dark, you may not be as wary because you'll know that what it normally looks like. Jay's going to go over the race course, but do pay attention to that. And again, just see as much of the race as you can. I will say this, when you're crossing the bay, you might think you'll be at the finish line in 2 hours, but you don't want to throw everything out of your boat. You could be in the bay for like 12 hours. So as tempted as you are to make that boat light and get finished faster, make sure that you keep what you need in the boat. All right. Nights can be really cold. I get cold really easily. Even if you don't get cold really easily, it can rain. A really light thing to do is to take a trash bag, cut out a neck hole and 2 armholes. You can have a couple of those in the boat and just throw them on at night, or if you hit a rainstorm, we've definitely hit those in the middle of the day. It does cool you off pretty fast to get in those rainstorms. So you want to be ready for that. And then if you are planning to take your time and just make the cutoffs and not just speed down the course, and you want to take a little nap, just know that when you stop paddling after 12 hours of paddling in the heat, your body has been working so hard and losing so much energy throughout that time that when you do stop paddling, you're going to cool down really quickly because your body's exhausted. That's a really good time to put on, a little rain jacket or a trash bag if you're going to lay down and sleep. I think the best thing to do is to have the person in the front lay back, take a nap, and that way the person in the back can keep the boat moving, because even if you're getting 1 mile an hour, you're still making headway. So your body temp is something really important to think about. You will notice that at the top of the course, Spring Lake is 72 degrees all year round. As you go down the course, the water is going to warm up because it's June. It's going to be hot, especially with the slow water. And so if you were to reach into the water and feel that the water felt cold in Victoria, then you might be overheating. So paying attention to how the water feels is also important. That might be a sign that you actually need to get in, cool off, and then go about your way. Okay, clothes. Girls, you need a seamless bra. You do not want seams. And that's everybody, whatever you're wearing, make sure that it's as smooth as possible, because you're gonna get sores, you're gonna get rubs. Start practicing in what you think you're gonna use in the safari. First of all, it's gonna get softer with time, but also you'll know if it's just not a good pair of shorts or whatever. We have friends that have done the safari in shorts, no sunglasses, you know. I do not recommend that. My ex-husband 1 year didn't go with sunglasses and his eyes were bright red. So wear the sunglasses. If they're polarized, it's gonna actually help you read the water better. So that's a little tip. You want your arms covered, your legs covered. Girls, the question I get is, you know, how do we tinkle in the boat? Well, if you have on tights, and you cut a little hole out, and then you put baggy shorts on, you can get a nifty little pija kind of up your shorts. Nobody's going to see anything. So I would recommend tights for everybody. Maybe don't wear white tights.
No white tights. No white tights.
We don't want to see that while you're bending over on a dam. But tights, shorts, all of that is really good. Sunscreen, you want to reapply your sunscreen. If you're duking it out in a race with somebody, you're not going to want to take that 2 minutes, but it is going to save your race. So hat, glasses, long clothes, all seamless, sunscreen application every, I don't know, make a good decision for yourself. At night, I do not like ice in my water, going back to the whole getting cold thing. So plan that out with your team captains and let them know that you're going to make decisions along the way that's going to kind of change course of what y'all decided to do. Maybe you've had a really hot day and you need to cool down. The night's a really good time to kind of do that if you have been overheating a little bit. So the ice in the water is something to help you regulate all of that. I do not like ice in my water at night. I love it during the day. Cooling yourself down with things like ice and sitting in the water, that is saving your body energy that you will then have energy to go and paddle. So by doing the proper body maintenance up front, you're actually going to have more energy to finish the race. That includes eating. You are not going to want to chew bacon or peanuts or whatever 200 miles into the race. So you want to make sure that you're planning on a method of nutrition that you're going to want to keep doing. So again, it's really important to train however you race. Yeah, just keep eating. Don't stop eating. All right. Trying to think of all the things that don't have to do nutrition, because I'm trying not to steal Gaston's thunder.
Oh.
What?
Lube.
Okay. So,
Aquifer.
a lot of people like Body Glide. I use my vitamin E. It acts as a really good barrier. Whatever you decide on, I mean, Morgan, like, this is the best time to be a female, is because the bathroom lines are actually shorter for us before the race than you men. But, you know, right before the race, we're putting on all the Body Glide, vitamin E, coconut oil, whatever you decide to use, put it on before you get in Spring Lake. That is going to really help with the rubs, because again, if you are chafing, you know, whether it's your bra line or your seams, that's not going to help you finish either. You can do it, but it's going to be painful. So yes, use something. But again, I highly recommend the vitamin E. All right, sleep. I find that I need sleep at the 48-hour mark. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I tend to start hallucinating at the 48-hour mark. So if you think you're going to be out there for 48 hours, and I promise you, this water does not go up, most of us will be out there for more than 48 hours. That being said, you do not, most likely, you don't want to sit and take an 8-hour nap because you're going to wake up more sore than when you started. Because we worked so hard getting down the river that first day, you know, sitting still for a little while tends to set in the body aches. So if you can do a 20-30 minute nap to reset your brain, go on down the river, take another 20 or 30 minute nap later on, that would be my recommendation. Some people like to pull over for 4 hours. You're just going to have to kind of think about that ahead of time, but I would plan, you know, your rest stops. And by training, you should know about how long each stretch will take you. Now, if you do, you know, Cuero to Victoria fresh, you're going to do that a lot faster than when you're doing it in the race. So do give yourself extra time during the race because you're probably not going to speed up in the race. The fastest you'll probably go is in training. Do at least one 6 to 8 hour training run. At least one. That's the fastest way to know, or the best way to know if your seat rubs, if you don't like your clothing, or if you know, don't like the food choice that you made. What am I missing as far as prep? Do you have questions?
You do the top of your hands.
The top?
Yeah.
Sunscreen.
Sunscreen.
Mm-hmm. We get the question a lot, like, should you wear gloves? I do not think so. There are people that have done it. My personal opinion is that anything holding water next to your skin is a problem. Now, your pants, you want, you know, Patagonia, Capilene, something light, Under Armour, something very breathable. But you want it UVA and be protective. But gloves, when you are grabbing that paddle and it's wet and against your skin, it's kind of a recipe for disaster.
And infections. We had a few problems with the low water and nasty stuff growing and infections in hands and stuff last year. So you might.
Yeah, so you will notice getting down to DuPont.
Swinging bridge.
Swinging bridge, yes. There are some different plants down there, like chemical plants. So when you get in that water, it's not as pure as when you're getting in Spring Lake, to say the least. So that being said, if you can avoid getting out, you know, around Swinging Bridge, saltwater barrier, that's probably the best place not to get out if you can help it. If you have to portage at saltwater barrier, you know, you'll probably have to hop in the water and keep moving. If there are log jams, which there probably still are, there probably will be, you'll probably have to get out. But the less that you do that, the better, as far as infections.
Yeah, because infections will set in fast on broken skin on your hands, and so.
Yeah, the less broken skin you have, the better, as far as preventing infection.
And blisters are broken skin.
Yes, blisters are broken skin. All right, what am I missing, Jay?
I don't know, you get the clothes, you talked about turning the shirt inside out so the seams on the outside.
That is a good trick. If you can't find a seamless shirt, then yes, switch that inside out. That'll help. Do we want to talk about tampons? We can.
Go ahead, hand it over, Bird.
All right, so let's talk about tampons. Ladies, the only time I've broken records is when I start my period the night before. So it's not a curse, it's a blessing. But you want to prep for that. So give your team captains all the materials you need. You can take plastic bags, line them with something opaque, and do what you need to do going down the river. I'll happily talk to you all about that afterwards, unless you boys want to hear about it. Jay,
I had a partner in a boat with 3 dudes, and nobody ever thought about it.
yeah,
And I was Virginia's team captain, and it's like,
I handed him my tampon.
I didn't care, you know? It was
It's okay.
like, go. I mean,
Yeah.
Anything but shoes?
Shoes.
Footwear?
Footwear?
Yeah, shoes.
Are you talking about
Like
like what kinds
recommendations
to look
or,
for?
yeah.
So when you get down to the log jams, most likely you're gonna prefer something with a toe. That being said, I really like, is it Kings or Tivas or where it's kind of open in the back because you'll get rocks in there and like to be able to like flick your shoe and like have the rocks fall out without having to stop paddling. I love that. You want something breathable and light. If you want to take your shoes off at night, like after Gonzales, letting your feet dry out is actually a really good idea. But what you don't want to do is flip in the middle of the night and you didn't secure the shoes to the boat somehow, and then they fall out and you don't have them at the log jams. So if you want to take your shoes off, I do that every year at night, just to let, you know, all your skin that can dry out is good. But do secure all of that to the boat. Make sure that that's not going to fall out if you accidentally come.
Another option for shoes is the Solomon Tech Amphibians.
Yes. Solomon, Merrill's, they both make really lightweight, breathable. Some people prefer more of like a tennis shoe looking type to where it is all enclosed. I still kind of get rocks in there, but I've done it and it's fine. You just take them off, flip out the rocks, and then you're fine.
socks aren't cool, but I would say that nothing lets your feet dry out better than if you wear like a nylon hiking sock if you don't like taking your shoes off, because it gives your foot somewhere to let that water go.
Like a lightweight liner, like a sock
Right,
liner.
like a sock
Yeah.
liner.
Mhm.
How do you treat if you do get a large cut or a scrape?
The question is, how do you treat a large cut or a scrape?
So everything medical is allowable for your team captain to hand you. That includes like Neosporin. I would say definitely if you get a cut, make sure that you get some sort of antiseptic in there because you really don't want to get an infection if you can help it. Obviously Band-Aids, bandages. Give your team captain like a real medical kit. Don't just hand them one Band-Aid and expect them to go find it for you in, the middle of
Or have it in the
nowhere.
boat. They should have it in the boat in case it happens between
Yeah,
Gonzo and
have
Homeland.
something in the boat, obviously, that's in the rules, but also your team captain should have like a full-on set of something in case you need it. That includes, Imodium, cut bandages, that sort of thing. Waterproof Band-Aids are the best,
And
for sure.
Virginia touched on it, but you can't emphasize enough with the low water like this, that means that almost everything in the river, probably everything in the river, has been touched by sewage discharge at some point. I cut my hand in 2009, which was probably about as low as it is here, at the Victoria boat ramp. I just like barely nicked my finger. And by the time we got to 59, it was oozing pus, it's like, it doesn't take much when it's that kind of stuff in the water.
I'm looking at my notes, but one thing I didn't mention as far as like prepping, go and train in the bay with your spray skirt. Take the time to do it. It's a pain. Nobody loves doing it, but you've got to make sure that your spray skirt works. We have friends where their boats have fallen over and you want to make sure that you know how to get out of it. Practice getting out of your spray skirt. A lot of them have like a thing that you loosen and then you slip off of. We have one friend who's very tall and very strong. He couldn't get his unhooked, and he was strong enough that he could push off the box, like he was upside down, push off the bottom of the boat, and like the whole skirt came with it. So make sure that you know how to do that stuff, because you are not going to be as sane at the end of the race as you are right now. So make sure you practice that. Other questions?
The spray skirt thing is a very good point, because some of you are going to be renting boats. The year that I raced with Gaston, it was like, hey, let's that team is like, let's put the cover on the boat and put snap it. And it was a completely different snap pattern, because it was for an identical boat, but the skirt was a separate time. And it would have been a really bad time to find that out if you went into the bay. So any piece of equipment you have in the boat, you want to check it out before the race starts.
Lily and I would go to Lake Austin and get in the motorboat traffic, and we put our skirt on in the lake while the boat's bouncing, and so we figured out, like, here's what we do with the paddles, here's how the skirt goes on. Now let's get in the boat and paddle, and we would get up against like a concrete bulkhead with the motorboat waves bouncing off, and I try to climb the boat, because we didn't want to drive all the way to the coast and have the conditions flat, so we knew we could go to Lake Austin, and there would be motorboat traffic, so we kind of did that.
So Gaston said, practice with the skirt in a rough lake.
Yeah, so try to put yourself in a situation similar to what you're going to be in.
Lake Boston's good, Canyon Lake's good, but for that Gaston's saying that, but he's done the course like so many times, and so he wanted Lily to have the experience of what it felt like to be in that bouncy water and dealing with the spray skirt. But if y'all have not done the course, like there is no substitution for seeing it from saltwater barrier to the finish line. The bay ruins a lot of people's races every year, including almost mine one year. And so you just really want to know that course. You don't want to mess that up, especially when you're loopy.
No questions online.
Okay. All right. Gaston, you want to talk about food?
What just happened?
Hey, I'm Gaston Jones, here to talk about hydration and nutrition. Feel free to interrupt or ask questions at any point, and I'll try to answer the best I can. This subject is very diverse. I've battled with lots of different people and next to lots of people, and I can say everybody has something that they found that works for them. I can share with you what works for me, and I can tell you some things that I've seen other people have problems with. And I feel like when you're working this hard, you definitely need sodium, fat, and carbs. I mean, you need everything. It needs to be balanced out. But what you don't want is to eat something heavy that's going to sit in your stomach and slow you down. So I think in general, what a lot of people have gravitated towards is like Tailwind and Spiz are the two main products I think that people are using now. And both Tailwind is more like a salty Gatorade. It's got a lot of carbs. It's easy on your stomach. And Spiz is like more like a chocolate or a vanilla protein shake, and it's a meal replacement. Both are pretty easy on your stomach. So a lot of people just drink that throughout most of the race, and then supplement that with like maybe a peanut butter sandwich, bananas, things that are light that you can just kind of nibble on and keep going. So that's what the things that I think to avoid would be like fast food, something like the beef jerky or like dehydrated sausage, something that you're going to eat and be burping 6 hours later and you're still tasting that piece of barbecue sausage or something that you had. It sounded good at the time, but it tends to stick with you for a while. So I try to avoid anything like that. I try to keep it light, keep it simple. Like some of our captains have given us fruit, watermelon, oranges, things like that, in Ziploc bags, and that's always nice and refreshing. again, I don't like pizza. I don't like anything really it's too heavy or too flavorful. Even tacos. And I may get in a mood where like, oh God, that taco sounds great. And I may just take 2 bites of it and then don't eat anymore and then kind of wait and see, okay, how am I gonna deal with that? And usually 2 bites is plenty. Like I don't want to eat the second half because it starts to kind of, you're working hard and your body's processing it. So too much of anything is no good, in my opinion. So I lean a little heavier on like the spizz and the tailwind, like I said. Any questions?
So to carry the water, some people use jugs.
Uh-huh.
Can you use a camelback or some other?
Oh yeah.
The question is about jugs versus camelbacks.
This is a jug there.
You can use a camelback.
But the Coleman jug is the most popular. And so, like, we would alternate between, like, a jug of electrolyte mix, like Tailwind, and then maybe the next jug you get is just water. Because if you're drinking the Tailwind, it tends to coat your mouth, and at some point it starts to not taste good. And so we would alternate this.
There's a variety of different.
So this is modified where you take, like, a Tupperware thing, you can dump your powder in there, and then what people will do is run a tube through the spout so you can drink hands-free. But this is definitely the most popular drink jug for Safari.
Because it's insulated, and the ice will keep it cold. The camelback's exposed.
So can you refill those at checkpoints?
Yes.
You would get fresh ones. You
Okay.
throw those out and then replace it with fresh ones.
Yeah.
And something Virginia touched on is like the ice. Probably one of the worst things you could do is have your drinking water cold in the cooler and then have your captain pack that jug full of ice, fill it with cold water, and then you paddle away and you take 2 or 3 sips, and then all of a sudden you've got a jug full of ice.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about that.
Okay,
But
okay.
about kind of how you gauge how much ice and stuff to put in those.
But yeah, I like to alternate, and so like every other jug would be just fresh water, and I also mix it light, like the Tailwind I like light. Sometimes at night, once you stop, like it cools down a little bit, I would like a really salty jug to kind of replenish what I've lost through the day.
Have you ever used Noon at all?
Oh yeah, those are awesome. Yeah, anything like that, and there's no magic.
He did ask about
for success.
Noon
Like, fine, it
tablets.
works for you, but yeah, the Noon tablets are great. And honestly, I just look and I put whatever I have. If I have Noon, that's great. I'll mix that with Tailwind. I put a little Gatorade in there if I have it. But the main thing is just getting sugar and sodium. Sometimes Central Market's got an off-the-shelf electrolyte called Essential Electrolytes. And I crack those open and I put them in my Spizz. I put them in pretty much everything that I'm bringing. So anytime that I'm drinking or eating anything, it's got electrolytes. The powder is just in there. So I add salt to pretty much everything. Sometimes the stuff can tend to just be so sweet, and after a while it's like, God, I don't want another candy bar or something like that. So I tend to add salt. I like more salty stuff because I think you're getting a lot of sugar anyway. So definitely have a balance.
And practice with it.
Practice with it, for sure. And I can tell you, like, some of the things that I like, my go-to things, like, I like small portions, but like potato chips, I like peanut butter crackers, bananas, banana bread, all in very small portions, and probably every hour eat something and drink something. So you have calories coming in. I've heard you can only process 300 calories an hour. Is that what you heard? So there's no point in just loading up and eating a whole bunch at one time, because then it's going to just slow you down. So just try to eat light and try to eat consistently throughout. It's the best way that I've found. Yeah.
Do you take like caffeine or any caffeine?
So some of the stuff, the Tailwind's got a caffeinated.
The question is about caffeine.
And, that can make you jittery. Yeah, I do. And it's kind of like whatever the caffeine gives you, yeah, okay, this was caffeinated, and I don't know if it is or not, but yeah, there's definitely caffeine mixed in with some of that stuff.
Practice with it.
I like the little small
Lily Jones is talking to those little high brew, high coffee. Those are good for her.
Yeah, the little cold brew coffees. Yeah, all that stuff is good. And that's kind of like, we'll have our captain just put the cooler, and maybe when you come through, they'll go, hey, I have Cokes, or I have cold coffee. And yeah, sure, I'll take one. But that's just when they have it available, sure, throw it in the boat. Yeah, those are great. Anything like that. But small, I can't say that enough. Just small servings. Like, don't drink too much of anything at one time. It comes with a cost, for sure. Sure.
Come over here closer to the microphone. People can't hear. I am trying to relay it, but...
So on the caffeine thing, y'all just remember, I use caffeine as well, but it is a diuretic. So you want to make sure that you're replacing that, water aspect in your body. And something that I didn't mention on the whole prep thing that I think is one of the best pieces of advice that someone can give you, you want to make sure that you're tinkling the whole way down the river. Some people only tinkle at night. I don't know what you do. I think if you are peeing more than once an hour, you probably need some salt. If you haven't peed in 6 hours, you probably are not drinking enough water. For me, the magic spot is once every like 2.5 hours. But your body is going to talk to you, and you've got to pay attention. And so that's what training is so important for. If you are craving McDonald's French fries, eat some salt tabs, but that requires that your stomach has water in order to digest that. And so if you take some electrolyte pills, drink some water with it. If you, Gaston likes to switch between the electrolytes and the, straight up water. I prefer water the whole way, and then I get my electrolytes in other sources. I put electrolyte pills in my Spiz, in every bottle of the Spiz, because I've trained with it and I know it works for me. For some people, that would be too much salt. I like to eat about 233 calories an hour. And so the way I get that is that I've got 2 scoops of Spiz, 2 capsules of electrolytes, and a little bit less than a tablespoon of oil. And that's olive oil, walnut oil, MCT oil. I have a mixture I can talk about. But so when Gaston's talking about small doses of food the whole way down the road, that's the way to do it. But you want to, I eat every 30 minutes because Morgan can attest to this. At the 29-minute mark, I'll be like, is it time to eat? And she'll be like, 1 more minute. And then buzzer goes off, I have my food. So, for some people it's an hour, for me it's 30 minutes. So you've got to figure out what works for you. But just remember, what you're craving, it's telling you something. If you're not peeing, that's telling you something. And so really, use the next 4 months to figure out what your body is saying, because that's the best way for you to, maintain yourself the whole way down the river. Oh, and seal meal everything. If they haven't said it yet, seal meal everything. If you want extra electrolytes in the boat, make sure that they're going to stay dry, because there's nothing better than opening up a little pool pack that's been saturated with water from, Victoria, and that's your electrolyte source. Do what?
Or your bladder, whatever.
Yeah.
It's funny because... Oh, sorry, Kelly.
That's good.
But it sounds funny that, we're talking about all these body functions, right? But that's what the race is. It's a series of your body's got to function from the start to the finish. And so this information you're getting from these guys is some of it sounds gross. Who wants to talk about tampons? I don't even like to have to be the one to talk. But it's part of what you do. So this food stuff, it's really critical. And it's, when I first started, we were on a lower canyon strip, like we're going to go into. But it was one of those college trips, and, I remember somebody saying, modesty has no place on the river. So bear that in mind. You don't need to be disgusting, but be comfortable.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah.
So, this is very good. So I heard that one way to gauge sodium level is to really evaluate how often you're taking
The question is how to gauge your sodium level.
an hour, then that would be a point where you're getting hyponatremia. I heard of some ways you're taking up to a gram of sodium every 30 minutes to bring themselves out of that hole.
I've heard of that.
For 3 hours, and then to reset their sodium.
We'll have.
Going outside, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't think you can take too much salt in during the water.
Jeff Waters would definitely differ. Jeff Waters would say differently. You can.
If you're drinking like you should and taking it in, I don't know that you can take too much.
We have a bottle in our 6-man boat. We'll have a bottle of sea salt
Yeah.
at a lot of the seats down the boat. And so at any time, somebody can just take that bottle and throw some sea salt and just get that. And you crave it. It's great. Pickle juice is a good one too. But yeah, I'd say for sure monitor that. And I had a partner one time that was, like you said, peeing every 20 minutes. A lot. It's like, hey, that's not normal. Like every time you drink, you shouldn't pee like a quart. And so he had to get right, and it was through, at that time it was salted plum was what people were bringing, and it was just like a really salty, like dried plum. And so he started chewing on those, and it leveled him out. So yeah, for sure.
How long would it take for it to level out?
Not long, like maybe an hour or so. Like slowly it started to normalize, and like he bounced back. If you can recover when you're out there, yeah, pretty much any time. I think you can feel really low and down, and you eat the right thing, and you kind of start feeling better, and you bounce back. For sure. Anything else? Yeah.
I gotta go. Along this,
Hold on, Will.
along this course description, there you have all these points and stuff with mileage. How often is a team captain normally needing you to swap stuff out?
The question is about how often should team captains swap out things on the course description?
So there'll always be the checkpoints. There's bridges between the checkpoints. Sometimes, depending on who your team captain is, they can find private access, or there's other places that people know of. But guarantee the checkpoints, and then if there's bridges, like say between Puerto 236 and Victoria, you have Thomaston Bridge and Nursery Bridge. So it's not going to be every hour. There's definitely going to be times when it may be 4 hours.
Or 8 hours.
Or 8 hours, yeah. Not so the whole line is a long run. And if you don't have private landowner access, that's 36 miles or so. And so that can take a really long time. So if you don't have that access, you want to definitely carry extra water and extra food, because you may be out there longer than you think. So definitely look at that and kind of put together a plan, so that when you see your captain, you'll know, oh, it could be 9 hours before I see you again. Lily and I, we would bring an extra gallon of water when we would do that section, because we didn't have the access, and we knew that it was going to be at night. She was sleeping, I was paddling, so it could be 9 hours. And so you just prepare for that. Bob?
Yeah, I just going to say, one thing you can do is have a plan in your team captain. So sometimes
Bob Spain is also answering this question.
So you need to kind of have a plan where your team to get to, and you team captain another member of this time. Maybe some maybe two just need to
Talking about taking extra on long stretches.
I was curious about, your 19 finishes. Like, do you stick up some type of schedule with hydration? Is it like 15 minutes? Like, what do y'all do?
We have a question on the fast finishes. Did they have a schedule that they followed?
In the big boat, you got 6 guys that have their own experience, and they know what works for them. So like, you can't put 6 guys on the same schedule. So yeah, everybody's kind of doing their own thing. But like, if you notice your teammate is starting to slow down a little bit, you might remind them, hey man, how you doing? Are you eating? That sort of thing. But no, there's no script that everyone's going to follow and do the same thing. Like everyone, you just trust that they're doing what they need to do. And there's no one size fits all for any of this. You have to figure it out for yourself and find what works for you. And like I said earlier, what works for me is the small. I like super calorie dense, like macadamia nuts, things that have a lot of calories in a small size. So I'm not eating a lot. I don't want to have to go number 2 when I'm out there. I want to eat just enough that my body can use that, and then have the rest liquids. And so that's what works for me. Yeah.
How are we communicating with the team captain?
So the best thing is to put the plan together before the race with your team captain. And
The question was, how do you communicate with your captain?
I want you here with this, and so we do that. We have team captain. Yeah,
I'm
look.
gonna talk about that.
Okay. But yeah, you would, and then you can tell them when you see them at a bridge and say, hey, next time, man, I'd love to have a Coke and a Whataburger, and then they'll know. So you can tell them, 6 hours down the river what you're going to want, but the best thing is to put a plan together before.
Cell phone or walk.
I don't know if that's legal.
You
Yeah,
can't.
it
They used to not.
Good answer.
I never used the phone.
But here's the thing, anytime you're on the phone, you're not moving. It's like, my joke used to be when we first started allowing two-way communication, like, I want my team to not be on the phone. I want your team to be on the phone. Because the more time you spend like that, so I think what Gaston said is exactly right. Sorry, Patty.
It's okay.
You need to have a plan in place ahead of time. And make micro adjustments.
Jay answering that you need to have a plan, even though you can have a phone and call your team captain.
I'm 766, and you're like, man, that was good, but man, I really feel like I need,
Salted watermelon.
Cold pickle juice.
Cold pickle juice. So there's a bridge an hour change right down from there, and so they can make that adjustment. Where it's hard is if you decide when you get to Gonzales that I want a cold pickle juice, but you got 8 hours to get to the next spot. So that's why I think everyone who's spoken said these longer practice runs, especially at this point in your racing career, is something that you want to do so that you found that balance as best you can without doing,
Pretty much the answer was practice, the long runs, practice.
So one other thing that we haven't talked about, the way that we exchange our food. So we'll put together maybe like 5 little zipper bags, and we'll pack those bags full of whatever you're going to want. And I would have a variety of salty, sweet, some goos, whatever it is that I'm going to be eating that year, and then you'll have 5 bags. So you plan like your first bag, maybe 5 or 6 hours in, you get a bag. That bag's going to get you to wherever, Gonzales. And then in Gonzales, you get another bag. And then, okay, you eat through that, maybe you don't want that bag, and then the next bag, is coming at whatever bridge, Cheapside. So you kind of schedule your delivery so you don't have all your food at once. If you do lose your bag, you stash a little something in the boat so that you'll have something to eat. But we usually do 5 scheduled food deliveries throughout the course, and kind of get it delivered that way. So that gives you time to pick through it and eat what you want. Yeah.
So you hinted at it, and I know it's not a question of if, but when. What is the procedure for the number 2?
What is the procedure for number 2? Go get him, Gaston.
I say go to the checkpoint, use the porta-can.
Your porta-can is the checkpoint.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the best answer.
No, that's right. I mean, it was never mentioned, so that's...
Yeah.
There are other answers, but they're all gross.
But if you're not in a really tight race, do that.
Or duty that. Duty that.
I know that Tim Curry has been putting together a list of things not to do during the water tour. I'm pretty sure there will be some, it'll probably make its way to the Facebook, and Tim can give you some ideas of things not to do, or as he calls it, pardon me, Patty, is shit not to take list. And probably he could give you places not to take a shit list.
Sorry, Facebook, a little bit of profanity. That's why you come to the small races and talk to the paddlers there.
If you do mostly liquid in small portions, it won't be a problem, I think.
Then take a Moody.
Yeah, am I missing anything, Jay?
No,
I think that's good. Yeah?
One more question.
One more question about that.
No, we can keep going.
Some racers will want to use caffeine throughout their entire race. But also, there's a lot of some people who
question is about using caffeine during the race and
I've done that.
maybe not using it up to
Yeah,
the race.
definitely like don't drink coffee leading up to the race and then try to hold off until you need it. I don't know, I think you're gonna get tired, you're gonna start hallucinating. I don't know that there's one right answer for that. Do what works for you. Like if you drink a coffee throughout every day, then obviously you're gonna need to do something different. But yeah, usually around 1 a.m. on the first night you start getting tired. So just take it when you need it. We've done with Lily and I, we were just getting so tired. We would just scream out in the middle of the night and splash the water. We would try to scare each other. Oh my God, what is that? You know, just anything to kind of get you going for like another 5 minutes until like, okay, well, we just have to do that for 3 more hours and then the sun will come up.
There's a lot of singers out there, I hear.
You can sing, you can scream out into the night. I mean, do whatever you can do to just keep going. And I like cold water over the head. Virginia said that's no good. That to me is pretty awesome, and that'll wake you up. So you learn little tricks and things to do, but caffeine's certainly helpful. Definitely.
But if you can hold off on the drug aspect of it as long as possible, then the more effective it is when you use it. You know, whatever that is.
But if you're out there 60 hours,
yeah, for 60 hours. But you know, I do agree the singing thing is helpful. I've done 5 safaris with Michael Bannister, and he's almost made it through. I've been everywhere at this point, but still hadn't gotten all the way through.
anything else?
No questions online.
No questions? You sleep? I have not slept since, I was telling somebody, 2002, I think, was the last time I slept in this morning. No, I go straight to it. And like I said,
Yes, Michael, it is the 60th annual.
You learn little tricks. You get better at it for sure. Like the first 2 years, there was no way. We were stopping all the time. And then at some point, like we can figure this out. And I've done it with no caffeine. I've done it straight through, just all natural. And had some really vivid, wild hallucinations. But you can control it with your mind. You really can. And but no, I haven't slept in a long time. The longest one recently was with Lily, 53 hours, I think. 57 hours. That was a long. That was maybe the longest that I've gone. Yeah.
Are paddleboards allowed?
Pardon?
Stand-up paddles?
Paddleboards?
It's paddleboard. Yes. So, understand that paddleboard.
Yes, the question is about can stand-up paddleboards compete?
There's not a specific category for stand-up paddle.
We've had 2 have finished.
No, more than 2.
Not solos.
Oh, not solos. Shame.
6-man paddleboard.
We had 4 entries last year and 1 Donovan who did finish. The lowest one.
1 finish?
1 finished last year before that started.
Anything else?
Last year that won. It was a horrible year. Out of the floor.
No, I'm just saying like a paddleboard.
I'm sure there'll be more questions as we go. So now you've had the 19-time finisher and multiple winner, and you've had the ladies record holders and that experience. Last year, what we did is we brought the previous year's novice winners in. Those guys are out of state, so it's not going to work. So I brought in the best thing I could almost get to. That I've got Andy and Spence here, and I asked them to give you the things they thought they knew before the race started, and things that they actually know that work now. So again, the team with the best hair in the Texas Water Safari, you've got Andy and Spence going to come give us a little bit.
Just remember to talk into the microphone. You guys are good. All right.
And y'all have heard all the key information already. Matter of fact, we're both middle school teachers in San Marcos, so we'll keep it simple. Maybe have some rhymes for y'all. Including calories and communication and the heat and hydration, because those are basically 4 words that can summarize the experience in a lot of ways. It starts with creating a training schedule, I guess, so with your team captains, and yeah, just kind of getting comfortable in your boat. So we try to get comfortable up here with y'all.
Yeah, I've gotten to learn so much, honestly, from Jay and from Holly, and I mean, a lot of these people that I've talked to, I've learned a lot of that stuff. They taught me a lot of secrets and tricks and stuff, so going into my first year, I felt like I knew everything. I was like, all right, let's go, and I kind of felt like I overtrained a little bit even, and something that really that I learned was that you can definitely overdo it, and like even just a couple of years ago when I did it, I blew my arm at the end of the race was completely swollen because I was just like, we can't let these people pass us. It took us 2 days to get past them, and as soon as we passed them, I was like, no, I want to get them out of our sight. And like we just paddled as hard as we could for like 20 to 30 minutes or something until we couldn't see them behind us. And it was something where at the time I was just like, yes, we did it. And then at the end of the race, when we're like trying to take showers and everything hurts, I'm trying to wash my shoulder, other shoulder, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't move my arm. And it's just like fluid in there and stuff. And so basically, I'm not sure what we're really supposed to talk about, but I got a lot of fun stories. And a lot of it is like, we work together really well. I mean, this is my best friend right here. We spend like 5 days out of the week together. And so something that, that I learned was the more you spend with your partner, the more time you spend with your team captains and your support team, like the better it's going to be, because even all the prepping you do, there's still going to be a lot of mistakes. Even like last year, we did so much prepping. We had a box for like every checkpoint and bags, and we labeled them and wrote little notes on them and stuff. And then we get to the start of the race, and I'm like, wait, I didn't pack any food for the start of the race. I got food for Staples, but I don't got food for Spring Lake. And so I'm like, oh man, the race starts in an hour. Like, Spencer, how many bars did you bring? And I had to take one of his bars. I had to get some food from our support team, and it was, luckily, like we've done it before, so it was something where they kind of knew what to bring and stuff like that. But I've gotten to do it 3 times, but it's kind of funny how many mistakes that I've kind of made along the way. We balance each other out a lot, and so he definitely is somebody who like keeps me in check. Like I said, I overdo it a lot of the times, and so we try to communicate as much as possible. And I'm like, I just can't stop. I can't sleep. Like it's like David's talking about, he doesn't sleep at all, and that's like what I've learned is like, yeah, you just go as much as you can, and until you just fall asleep, and then you slept. If you fall out of the boat, or if you're in a boat and all of a sudden you realize you haven't paddled for a couple of seconds and you crash into a wall, like, hey, you might have just slept for long enough.
Yeah, just going on that is the kind of contentiousness it can be with like sleep schedule during the race. I mean, night 1 is like we had the intention of paddling through the night. I think it was maybe like 4:30 in the morning, and I'm in the front of the boat, like falling asleep. I don't want to lose my paddle in the water, so like, yeah, sleeping while he's in the back of the boat, still paddling. Finding out what works for your team, sleep schedules is a big part of that, and then also, I guess dealing with the heat. So like, if pulling over during the day to sleep for maybe one of those 20-minute naps, like was talked about earlier, so that you can paddle throughout the night when the heat's a little cooled off. That may be a good strategy. Just kind of calories and continually eating. Because like Ian was saying, at the beginning of the race, missing out on some calories, then you might find yourself cramping, and it's only like 12, 18 miles in. But yeah, that consistent calorie intake is key with the hydration, the electrolytes. At different checkpoints, like we had a planned food schedule, but yeah, you get to a checkpoint, you're going to want some different kind of food. Just communicating with your team captains. Sometimes you're really trying to make those checkpoints very efficient. All the seconds add up, paddle like per minute. It's a marathon of a race. So
How long were your checkpoint stays typically?
The question is, how long did they spend at checkpoints?
So we kind of, for us, especially because more embracing that novice paddler perspective. He has much more experience as a river raft guide and stuff, but we figured checkpoints and portages are where we can like make up some ground. So we were doing those very quick. We had them planned out. So like as we're approaching the checkpoint, depending on which one, because some of them are dams, some of them are little bridges, some of them you have the ability to just throw your water jugs out like 20 yards above the checkpoint as they float down. Your captains get you your new water. We don't want to get out of the boat was our mindset, and I think that's the mindset for a lot of people who are kind of trying to get the quickest time. It's like those 20-minute naps, someone else is paddling, just kind of continuing the boat down the river as much as possible. When we do have to pull over to sleep in our boat, it's because of me, and like, yeah, he's antsy that whole time. So it's like, just trying to communicate what is most effective, because if your team, maybe a 2-hour nap, night 2 is like your plan, and night 1 you don't sleep at all because you're like, I've got that 2-hour nap. Night 2, that may come with more, I guess, training or experience. Like, I think a crucial training aspect may be doing some overnight training if possible, but we didn't necessarily do that. But definitely that training of those 30-mile sections, I think it's Gonzo to Hoheim, and then Hoheim to Cuero, where it's like 37 and then 31 miles, and you're already 100 miles into the race, so you're going to want to have that kind of planned out a little bit, whether you're doing that throughout the day and it's going to be very, very hot, or overnight if you're going to have some kind of sleep schedule planned. Yeah.
What is something that surprised you about the race?
The question is, what is something that surprised them?
I think the kind of repetition of just paddling and like feeling like, I guess this term I've heard from endurance runners is like a pain cave of like, wow, this hurts, or like my hips are kind of going a little bit asleep because I've been in the boat for this long, and just kind of the ability to like acknowledge that. And we communicate very often like, oh, my hips are hurting, how are yours feeling, as a way to kind of, I guess, keep that check. But like, yeah, the ability to get into that pain cave and kind of just exist in it, and then your body kind of can continue to keep paddling if you're hydrating and getting calories.
Something that surprised me, like especially this last year, was, I mean, we trained every section, and like I said, when you train it, you're going to go a little bit faster than when you're racing, and you'll be surprised how much longer those checkpoints actually are. Like last year, the water was so low, it's probably going to be low this year, but we were out there like 2 hours longer than we thought for a certain checkpoint. So we had drank all of our water. So we're like, oh, surely it's 3 more turns right here. And we're like, all right, 30 minutes later, all right, it's got to be coming up. I remember that deer blind. It's around the corner. And then you're like, no, they must have just put that deer blind up, because I swear they. And so like this last year, we were really surprised at us how long each checkpoint really took. So really just trying to be positive the whole time. And I mean, you'd be surprised, we could start paddling for the first, you could get to Staples and you're like, man, my toes are numb. And it's because you're not pumping your legs maybe or something, but like, within the first half of the day, you might be like, wow, I'm having some weird, like my fingers are going numb, my back might be spazzing. You'd be surprised how quick those things happen, but it's usually just a sign that you're not having good form in a sense. A lot of it really just comes down to technique and making sure that it is a full body sort of thing. You think you're just sitting in a boat, but you should be moving your legs the whole time. You should be using your toes. You should be trying to use your big muscles as much as you possibly can, sort of thing. I have like nerve damage on my back sometimes, just because, like I said, I don't listen to my body, and like so it'll be something where first day of the race, I'm like, oh man, like we got how much longer we got this? I'm already hurting this bad, and then at the, 2.5, 3 days later, I'm like, all right, it still hurts, but I've kept it. It's you can definitely surprise yourself just with a lot of those sort of things. Take it, mile by mile, paddle stroke, each paddle stroke at a time, each checkpoint. You'll get there eventually. Right? Question? Yes.
The question is, what's the best type of exercise to prepare?
Yeah, you know, I try to hop on a bike as much as I can, or like just to kind of get that cardio. But really, the best conditioning is going to be paddle. Yeah, the more, because a lot of it is just sitting in that boat and like just getting your body used to sitting for so many hours. Like your tailbone's it's gonna have to get used to that sort of thing. You gotta from it tailbone.
And maybe anything to build up callus, because yeah, the vitamin E oil, I think it's been said, but cannot be said enough in terms of you'll start to blister and put on the vitamin E oil like continuously. If you're not having like callus already, that's a major factor.
And that's why I think someone mentioned earlier, hitting those 30+ mile sections will really just kind of help you, obviously physically, but a lot mentally. Because you can kind of just reflect back on, man, you remember when we had 38 miles a couple months ago? Like, well, we're on that section right now. Like, we did it last time. We know we're going to be done before. We've been able to read the water a certain way to get to it. A lot of it is getting that mileage, which is, if everybody here is from around the area or, you know, within like a 50-mile radius, that's like kind of the advantage that we get. We get to see the section, we get to paddle the river, we get to do a lot of the checkpoints that some people from maybe out of state don't get to see as well. And if you are out of state, it's just, you know, make sure you're getting as much miles on the boat as possible.
You know, Lake Vince Lombardi, the coach of the Green Bay Packers for years, somebody was asking about weightlifting for his guys, and he said, the best way to play football is to practice football. And I think most of the great paddlers are, you know, they spend as much time as possible paddling. Now, we have an advantage down here that, you know, it was freezing this morning, but tomorrow it's going to be 80 degrees. And so, even if you live in Dallas or Houston or something, or, I don't know, you know, somewhere like that, there's water to paddle. I mean, you live in San Angelo, and there's a lake to paddle in, you know, so paddling is the best exercise. That's, as soon as I say that, I think about all the Yankees we all try to recruit to bring down here, who can't paddle half of the year, but they're cross-country skiing, and they're all doing something physical, you know, all the time. And you paddle, Bob,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, a lot of people who.
Jay was talking about paddling is the best preparation. Bob is talking about machines, like rowing machines, things like that, weights. Like rowing machines, paddling, erg machines to practice on.
To answer his question directly, you can plank, you can do pull-ups, and you can do push-ups, and those 3 exercises will target a lot of the muscles you'll be using.
If you can't hear Virginia, she says planks, pull-ups, and push-ups.
Hearing a theme. The vitamin E is so awesome, but it's not awesome if you got the top of your vitamin E oil all covered with mud because you stepped on it. So when you're putting the vitamin E on, you're just slathering, you know, mud and sand in that vitamin E. Because sand and mud is what causes blisters. So if you're paddling and there's nothing on your hand, you're probably not going to get a blister. So one thing to take away is whatever you
Virginia's talking about
coat your skin,
keeping your skin intact
because when you go to
and
apply
clean if possible.
whatever it is, whether it's a stick or whatever, you don't want to get sand in that layer because that will lead to blisters.
The friction is not too great.
Yeah.
We like sand our paddles before we start.
Gaston says they clean all the paddle stuff beforehand.
Like Virginia said, 1 drop of vitamin E oil, and you feel 1 grain of sand. If there's 1 grain of sand on your hand, you will feel it on your paddle.
Yeah. So very good advice for keeping the sand off of everything.
Instead of the actual oil, you get the 1,000 milligram or whatever it is.
Jay says he uses the capsules of vitamin E.
Because that tends to feel a little stickier, you know, and it doesn't feel
Well, and our family uses Aquifer, and I've seen people use Climb On as well. So there's lots of products. Just practice with what you're going to use. Yeah.
You gotta use them while you're training.
Yeah, I really like what you said earlier about keeping it positive, and that's one thing, just being on the sidelines this last year, I noticed with every boat that was successful, especially like Virginia's, Gaston, of course, but all the successful boats had like such a good like vibe going, you know? And so I never realized like how super important that was until I saw it like firsthand and saw like just how great it is just to keep it positive. So many bad things happening here, right? But,
And Will Leeds was mentioning that the positive people
so much better. And I don't know
do better at it. So
maybe
staying
doing
positive.
better, a little more positive, but you know, there was
Staying positive
definitely a
is
difference.
part of your
People
maintenance.
who had good attitude, they were positive, getting along, having fun together. Like even you guys, I mean, I saw y'all at Staples Dam. Things were a little, but then it got better down the river, right? So y'all keeping it positive. So I think that makes a huge difference.
It's gonna be hard. It's gonna kind of suck eventually. So you gotta want to finish. You gotta want to do it, and that's kind of what's gonna keep you going most of the time.
Thank you for the examples. It helps a lot to kind of hear what y'all prepared for and what really worked while you were on the river. What were your 4 key things again? You talked about calories, you talked about heat. What were the other 2?
Yeah, communication.
Calories. Yeah. Communication and calories.
Hydration, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I think having that jug setup was really helpful earlier. Like having really accessibility in your boat to your calories and to your hydration, just like the hands-free. That communication piece, like I'm in the bow, so I mean, I'm just like kind of in the front of the boat, and he's talking a lot, and I mean, I think it's helpful, like even little things like I'm about to take a bite of a bar, like I'm going for a bite of my sandwich. We're like communicating, because then like it's not just like hut, or like draw. It's like, I don't know, there's a nature of like checking in consistently, communicating, and that kind of goes with the hydration and the calories, just kind of maintaining that throughout the race is really important. Yes.
So how do you test your nutrition? Because I know if you're paddling on a day like
The question is, how do you test your nutrition?
in June, when it's up close to 100 degrees. So what was your longest run or really kind of test those race conditions?
Yeah, doing that major, that, I guess,
Gaston.
on to, or the 37-mile checkpoint or the 31-mile, and yeah, just bringing a lot of options on training, like bringing like 5 Nutri-Grain bars, a couple different types of sandwiches, maybe a pickle, like bringing different options and just seeing what you want during those training sessions, and then knowing the heat is going to be a major factor. I struggle, I think, more so with that, depending on just how you deal with the heat. Your hunger is going to be really different, so you just got to convince yourself to keep eating. Both of us. Everybody's going to probably struggle to keep eating at certain points.
All the stuff you've been training with.
Yeah, you don't want to chew.
Yeah, you don't want to chew anything. Eventually, it's one of my favorite parts is I'll start thinking about eating and I'll just start gagging and I'm just like, and Spencer just has to hear me like, I'm like, all right, it's been about 45 minutes, I should probably eat another snack. And then like he's just listening to me and like I said, we talk about it, we get as much as we can, so I'll be like, all right, going for my snack, grab it and really try to be as efficient as possible. So I'll grab the snack, take a couple strokes. All right, opening the snack, and then I'll be like, all right, taking a bite, and then I'm just like trying to eat as much as I can. It's so that's part of it too, is that you can train with as much of that stuff to eventually feel, man, it worked for 5 months and now I don't want it.
And that, yeah, that's with the team captains, and that's when maybe the random request for some food comes in at a checkpoint where just you didn't anticipate wanting avocado and steak fat taco, but all of a sudden that's what you need. You didn't maybe want more electrolytes, but then your body's just needing that, so like communicating that with your team captains. Just kind of a funny example from the first year he was racing, I was one of the support team members, and we just got them like gas station pickles because they requested those randomly. But at the next checkpoint, they were both pretty frustrated because apparently those were spicy pickles. they were not.
Verge,
but,
come use
it
the
was
microphone.
just like, yeah.
So I just want to give y'all a couple options. If your stomach turns and you are like, there's no way I'm chewing, get this to your team captain from HEB or wherever before the race. They don't want to go grocery shopping in Victoria. So plan for this ahead of time. But get applesauce with cinnamon. You can get the squeezy packs. You don't have to chew it. It is going to settle your stomach. I've had several races where someone gets sick. That totally works. And then Morgan and I had a really neat log jam experience where we siphoned a jug and just sucking on grapes. I know that sounds weird, but sucking on grapes was awesome. So grapes and applesauce with cinnamon would be my recommendation for prepping or, if your tummy hurts.
Yeah. Or peppermints or something minty sometimes.
Wait, what's up?
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys were alternating who was in front and who was in the back. And if
The question is, do they alternate who is in the stern and who is in the bow?
So that's something where we, for the most part, he stays in the bow the whole time in the front, just because we're more comfortable with that. I will say though, it is better to be able to alternate for sleeping. Is a big part of it. I have a really hard time relaxing and sleeping in the race, but when I can sit at the front of the boat and trust that my sternman can steer and I can relax and not have to worry about flying into the bank or crashing into a tree or something. So being able to alternate helps a lot, but whoever's got better like river reading skills or is going to be able to kind of have that pace count a little bit better. But yeah,
so more skilled should be in the back.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like 100%, but it's kind of like front, maybe more of an engine, the back, more directionality with steering. Especially, we're talking aluminum boat with 2 people, but like a 4 or 5 person boat, they're going to have a rudder in the back. And so I guess there's different tactics, but with aluminum, 2 people in the boat, you're going to want the person to drive the river back so they can make the move.
But it can definitely backfire. Like if you just count on one person steering and one person being that motor, like towards that second or third day, you're using your brain a little bit more. I think when you're sitting in the back, you're having to just kind of read the water, you're having to make decisions, you're having to kind of be like, is it bottoming out over there? Is it channelizing over here? Is that a stump, or am I just still hallucinating? So it does help. You use your brain a lot in the back. And so towards the end of the race, your brain's tired. And you're just like, oh man, I wish I could just close my eyes and just paddle and have someone tell me what to do because I'm tired of thinking, I'm tired of having to, read these things that I can barely see and my eyes are tired. But yeah, usually the person in the back is going to be kind of steering wheel. Yes?
What are some of the challenges operating at night?
The question is, what are some of the challenges paddling at night?
Making sure you have a good light setup is Aaron's still here, shout out. But having a good light setup is pretty crucial. Understanding what part of the race, like what section of the race you're doing at that night, especially with the low water, there's going to be like trees down in the river with branches that are going to be obviously there during the day, but harder to see at night. And definitely, kind of wanting to gauge when it's time to find a little eddy or pull over your boat if you need to. But I think, the idea of hydration and electrolytes and maybe caffeine is necessary throughout the night.
You tend to go a little bit slower if you're not paying too much attention to it as well. So that kind of helps a little bit as you're not, you're probably a little more tired, you can't see as well. So obviously, if you're focusing on that, you won't go as slow, but you go a little bit slower at night sometimes. I would say listening to the water helps a lot. I call it my Jedi mode, where I like, because in the second, if you're out, like last year we were out there for 70 hours, and it was like, oh my gosh, and I couldn't, like, I would look at things and everything was blurry, and so I'll turn my head to kind of hear the water. So try to listen for the water as much as you can. Try to see those ripples, knowing that those ripples are going to be, well, there's probably a little gravel water coming up. Things like that. Really just communicate as much as you can. Be like, hey, do you see that up there? Like, is that a stump? Is that a, oh, no, that's just a shadow. Is that an alligator? Oh, no, it's not that. Oh, that's just nothing. But like, communicate as much as you can. As soon as you see something, trying to be like, hey, do you see that? You're trying to just describe it. Make sure you guys are on the same page the whole time.
Did you guys do anything about bug prevention for the guy in the bow?
Is your light a permanent fixture on your boat, or are you pulling it out at night, fixing it, and how high are you trying to position that?
We'll talk about lights.
Yeah, the last little bit, we're going to talk over, you know, the colors and lights and everything, so we'll keep it there. You got it all right.
We're just like you.
Just don't stop paddling. Don't stop paddling. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys on purpose.
Thank you.
I want to reiterate what Andy said about you have to think more if you're in the back of the boat. I tend to think all the smart guys are the stern. Bob is disagreeing.
You know, no, I'm not disagreeing totally, because if you're not used to, this is something I want to bring up because we haven't really said anything about it. Anybody who's paddled for a number of years uses a sit and switch method of paddling. If you're new to the sport and have somebody on the back that's ruddering all the time, like wreck paddlers do, you need to learn how to do it with the sit and switch technique. You can improve your performance so much more between now and the race if you get someone to show you who's experienced how to do that. And
If you
steer
can't
the
hear
boat with
Bob, he's
forward
talking
motion,
about
with forward
learning
strokes instead of
technique
dragging the paddle
on
and slowing
paddling.
down all the time. So that's just
Like
throwing it out
class
there.
or
If you
getting
don't know
someone to
about
teach
that
you.
and haven't done it, you can make the most improvement in your paddling by learning how to steer the boat properly.
We're talking about Peter's boat course.
We're
talking about Peter's boat experience. So now we've mainly spent all the time except for the bit with the rules talking about the paddling part of the race. And there have been some questions about handoffs and everything, but Kristen, I mentioned earlier, has been team captain about 25 times, and she's going to kind of give us the hit and miss on the team captain stuff, you know, and then I'll tell her where she's wrong, just like I do during the race, and have to pay for it afterwards.
All right, who here is going to be a team captain this year? All right, y'all are ahead of the game because we're here. So you picked up a sheet that got lots of single space stuff front and back. There's also some additional information on the website that one of the things that people have talked about is have a plan. There's a spreadsheet that has, it's probably pretty up to date, I have to go double check, but all of the different places public places that you could do a handoff that also includes checkpoints, and it's got a generic spot for like racer 1, racer 2, and you'll see columns of like ice packs, food packs, jug or bike bottle. That's just a guideline that you can talk through with your team about what type of things they're going to want at each checkpoint. And then we've also talked about, you know, some checkpoints, if they're pretty far apart, or the bridges, you're going to want to give them 2 jugs instead of 1 jug. Or maybe if, like, going from Gonzales to Hoheim, they need 2 jugs apiece plus an extra gallon of water. That's a planning tool for you. There's also one of the other sheets that is out there is the mileage between each bridge and checkpoints and speed. So that can also give you a gauge of how long it will take them from spot to spot. One of the most important things I can say about being a team captain is go on the practices with your team whenever at all possible, because you as the team captain, you have to learn how to drive to all those different locations. Don't ask your racers how to get there because they're only seeing it from the river. There's a driving guide that is available on the website. I would suggest you go ahead and print that out. Keep that in the vehicle with you and start making notes as you go on practices with the team. so that you know, hey, oh, there's a really good gas station here, they've got 20 bathrooms. This gas station is open 24 hours, or, you know, the hours of HEB, because you're gonna have to resupply with water and ice along the way. Let me go over a few little highlights here. Basically, the first day is going to be your craziest day because everybody's still kind of bunched together. There's going to be lots of traffic. So just be patient that first day and make sure you know all of the rules. We covered them this morning, but please read them again. You don't want to be the reason as a team captain that you got your team disqualified or a penalty. I would highly recommend that you have 2 team captains, even if you are only going novice and have 2 people in the boat. It's just a lot. It's very helpful to have that extra set of hands and another mind, because you as team captains are going to get tired throughout the race as you're supporting the team. You know, you may be catching a few hours of sleep here and there, but you're having to operate the vehicles, and you're going to have to start being the mind for the racers.
And that's why we switched to team captains a few years ago. When you're in the boat, generally the worst thing that's going to happen is you fall asleep and you fall out of the boat and you wake up. You're not going 70 miles an hour down 185 with the hogs running out in front of you or something. So that extra set of eyes and ears is a safety thing for the team captains, even more so than it is as something for the racer.
Yeah, and I would suggest, if at all possible, to have separate vehicles. That if you have a smaller team, you can probably fit everything in a larger vehicle. One of the things that happened is with the rule change of us being able to give food along the way and medical supplies, that increased the space that we needed in our vehicles. I remember the first year that we had food that we could give them, I was working check-in all day. Joe was racing the 6-man boat that year, and I got back and I was like, what is all of this stuff piled up? And they're like, oh, that's all the stuff, that's all of our food you have to take in the vehicle. I was like, I don't have room for this. And because I had all my other supplies.
So I got a new truck.
Yeah, I got to get a bigger truck. So you need to really plan ahead, plan out what they're going to be taking. With parking, when you go to park at a checkpoint or a bridge, always have the mindset of how am I going to get out of here, because they get crowded. So I always try to back in, make sure that I've got a very easy route out. And June. I hear you, June. So you want to make sure your vehicle's in good working condition, and be very aware of any mud. Of course, we haven't had any rain, so it's pretty dry, but think about what's going to happen if you're standing down waiting for your team and a rainstorm comes in, especially at Hoheim. You can get stuck very easily. Let's see. Okay, we were talking about something like how do you do handoffs? And it can get a little complicated because if you and you want your teams, racers, as you're coming in, if you're going to be like Annie and Spence, and you're just going to kind of slow down and not really stop, you've got to slow down enough for your team captains to get everything into the boat. So don't yell at them if you don't slow down or you're not going to stop. Because you could be holding a jug, and we talked a little bit earlier about things going in food bags. You could have a food bag, you could have a light bottle that you're giving them with spizz, and then you also have a ice pack full, so you could be standing there with quite a few things in your hands. And so you want to make sure that you can hold on to the boat as a team captain to aid in doing a handoff. So, and you can also hold on to the boat as a team captain to pull out trash from the boat. Now, I will say, if you're pulling trash out of the boat, be very careful that you're not reaching in there and grabbing a paddle, a life jacket, you happen to grab your light or something. You don't want to take that out of the boat, because once that's out of the boat, it can't go back in, so only grab trash. A lot of the times, The racers will, as they're throwing their used food bags and stuff, some of them will go ahead and put their trash in here and then throw that out. And you want to make sure that you always pick up all the litter and not leave anything behind, because that's also a possibility of a penalty or disqualification if you're littering. We were talking about seal annealing your food, all the other items. Like I said, I think this has been seal annealed up for probably 5-10 years now. This is actually their spray skirt from last year that's seal annealed up, and it's seal annealed because it didn't make it to Seadrift, but it's seal annealed. It's nice and dry and handy. So if you seal anneal things the right way, it really works. And sometimes you, with food, if you want to like put it in a Ziploc bag first and then seal anneal around it, you can. It's another option. We were talking about body glide, all that kind of stuff. That's things that they need to have in the boat with them. And a lot of racers will start with a body glide, or Jay's favorite is Gaston from his waist down, and he'll take extra in the boat with him. And he'll take an extra pair of gloves, the surgical gloves, if he's going to reapply, so then you're not getting that all over your hands. Let me see what else. Earlier, as we were talking about peeing and eating, part of the way that you can assess your team is to ask them, have you been peeing? Have you been drinking? And as you are doing handoffs, if you pull out, if it's been 4 hours since you've seen them and you are swapping jugs, if you pull out a full jug from their boat, that's a sign of concern, because you need to why aren't you drinking? What happened? Or if you get back a full food bag and they haven't been eating, you want to talk to them. What's going on? They could, whatever they wanted that tastes horrible right now, because your taste buds will change throughout the race. Then, have some different options that they've tried in practice, but maybe they didn't pack in that section. You can pull out things and well, try this, see if you like this, try that. I would recommend not having to be responsible for any children or pets as being the team captain, because you need to focus on the racers. It can get kind of complicated, and some of the handoffs, especially at Palmetto, they were talking about that. Those are places you want to go and see and talk with your team about where they want to do the handoffs. And I would recommend on the spreadsheet I was talking about what you're going to hand off, I would put notes on there about where you're going to be standing, like at Staples. Are they going to portage right? Are they going to portage left? Which side of the bridge do you need to be on? At Palmetto, sometimes you can do a handoff upstream, there's a gravel bar, or do they want you down below the bridge after they want you, either gone over the bridge or under the bridge, and that type of thing. So talk about where you need to be. Talk about, are they gonna, talk about, are they gonna come in and stop? As you get to the lower part of the river, pretty much the only place you're doing handoffs is at the checkpoints, unless you have private property access. So those distances are a lot further. They may say, okay, when we come into Swinging Bridge, we're gonna rest for 10 minutes. Make sure that you're helping them manage their time, because teams can waste a lot of times at handoffs. If they want to keep moving, you help them keep moving, and not just stand around and chit-chat about what's going on. Question?
I'm just saying, if you have two captains, I'm assuming they both can help with the drop-off.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The question is, if you have two captains, can both help?
That Swinging Bridge off the canal is where there's that one-lane bridge just
Yes.
south of Vista. Is that lit up, or I'm thinking you can't see over?
Nope.
The question is it a one-lane bridge at Swinging Bridge? And the answer is no light.
I've been going over that bridge since 1996 and haven't really had any problems with it, but I do go slow and cautious over that one. Yeah. And some of, we were talking about shoes earlier. I wear the same type of shoes that Jay wears in a race. I've got some Solomon Tech Amphibians that stay on my feet. You don't want to wear flip-flops doing handoffs. They're going to get lost. or if you happen to step in the mud, you're never gonna get them back. So, make sure that what you're planning on, wearing in the race, that you kind of try that out to make sure, you know, if you think these are the most awesome shorts ever, but then all of a sudden they get wet and they stretch out and they fall off, that's not good. Or, you know, make sure that you are taking care of yourself, that you're wearing sunscreen, that you're getting rested, that you are eating and hydrating throughout the race, as well. On the back page, I have a long list of items to bring. It takes a lot of equipment to help get a team down the river. There's things, that top section is kind of things to make your life easier, and then the bottom section is talking about life jackets, obviously because we've been in low water, it hasn't been that big of a deal. But on the low river, if the water is up, some of those handoffs can be a little iffy. And I have my own life jacket and rope that I have been tied off many different times to make sure that if I slip, I'm not going to be going downstream. And let's see.
That's what she said. Really, I was fishing for alligators.
I did troll for alligators off Tybelly Bridge one year. This is one of our totes that we use to do handoffs that we can put jugs in, and it's got the fanoodle around it so that it'll float. And then it also has our very dirty strap. And this is a really good size for doing a tandem boat. For the larger boats, we've got more larger laundry baskets that we use. Some people use nets to help fish out jugs that have been thrown out. Let's see what else. Be prepared for the mosquitoes, especially around Sweeting Bridge. They can be terrible. Or a wooden bridge, which is not wooden anymore. But they can be really terrible. So make sure you've got your own set of supplies that don't end up going in the boat. Let's see. Make sure that you bring some trash bags so that you're packing out all your trash, throwing that away. And with the use, you know, we do have because they all have their spot trackers in the boat, and there's really good cell coverage for all of the race course, except the worst part is at saltwater barrier. So if you have been keeping track of them on our website with the app, and it's been pretty spot on, which now it's been pretty good. But at saltwater barrier, you can be watching that, and it'll start saying that it hasn't updated in like an hour, 2 hours. And you're like, where are they? All of a sudden, when they get about 10 or 20 minutes out, it's going to start updating. So don't freak out that the app doesn't work quite as well down on the Spring Bridge, and you just don't have really good cell service down there either. I'm sorry, at Saltwater Barrier. Yeah, Holly.
One thing I've seen with the spot tracker is it goes based on your current speed. So if your team is going real slow because one guy's leaving or they're carrying around a long end, they recalculate the time. So team captains use your basic math, not just the spot tracker.
Don't rely on the spot tracker.
Yeah. Yeah, because it may, they may be tracking along.
If you couldn't hear Holly,
in like 5 or 6 hours, and then all of a sudden it jumps
she
like
says
10 to 12 hours.
It may be recalculating.
Go with like what you know
Spot
they've been doing
tracker.
kind of in practice, and you may want to add a little bit. So, but Spot Tracker is a tool. It is not the end all be all silver bullet. It's just one of the tools that you can use. Let's see.
And just so you all know, the app, the tracking app, will go live that morning. So we'll blast it out on Facebook and everything, but they won't be able to, tell your friends and family not to freak out, in Oklahoma, because it's not live until right before the race starts.
That morning of the race, when they go to the website on Saturday morning, it'll pop up. Do you want to go into
Use the tracking app? Yeah.
So, any other questions about team captaining or kind of that relationship? Yes.
On the list here on each support team, it says too much water goes with spray nozzle. What is that?
Oh, so the
comment was
one
about the
gallon,
hose on the team captain
Things
list.
like at, Home Depot or Lowe's that you use to put like spray in your yard. You can get a new one of those and fill that up with water. And if you use if you're using jugs that have the tubing in it, they're hard to clean out. And if you use that pump and then you spray in here, it's really easy to clean out the jugs with that.
Because if you're reusing those during the race, they've gotten hot and they've gotten gross.
Yeah,
And if you don't have hot water to clean them along the race route a lot of times, so.
Yeah, and one more thing, when you are cleaning out jugs and bite bottles during the race, do not use soap. Just rinse it out with water because taste buds get very sensitive during the race. And if there's any speck of soap residue,
Vinegar, bleach,
left,
don't.
any of that, just use water to rinse off. And if you are putting ice, that's one thing I was going to talk to you all about is how to put ice in jugs. Make sure if you are, I always try to use a cup to make it instead of my bare hands because you don't want to, if you have sunscreen on, bike spray, you don't want to get the residue from your hands onto fresh ice that's going into their jugs because then they won't drink the water because it'll taste bad. So Gaston was talking about it's really bad during the heat of the day. If they get a jug that has tons of ice in it and not very much water, they're going to end up drinking, or whatever liquid they're drinking, they're going to drink all of that and then they're just going to have a jug full of ice, and that's a potential for them to get dehydrated. So one of the things that I do with these type of jugs, and just, whatever jug you're doing, kind of look to see that. Like on this example, there is a little kind of, line in the jug that's about this far down. So what I'll do is I will put all the liquid in here, and then I'll add about that much ice. The other thing I do is for water that I'm using, either straight water or water that I'm mixing with electrolytes during the day, I make sure that water is already cold. So that way when I put it in and then I put the ice in, the ice isn't having to already cool down that water. So the ice will stay in there longer, so I don't have to put as much in there. And at night, several of them were saying that they get colder at night, so I never put ice in their jugs at night. And I go back to a lot of times using just regular temperature water and not cold water.
Another really neat hack is if you have one of those orange 5-gallon dispensers, I put that in the back of the truck at the beginning of the race, and about a day and a half in, it's pretty warm. And we're not using it in anything but we're cleaning, so that I'm like simulating warmer water to help get that spizz and nasty stuff out. So,
any other team captain type questions?
I was curious about them like sleeping throughout the trip.
the question was about team captains being able to sleep.
Oh, the team captains?
Yeah.
So it depends. On the speed of your team. With novices, it's obviously going to take longer, and it would be beneficial to do. You could do a hotel room either like in Gonzales or Cuero, and then probably maybe another one down in Victoria. But you would need to plan that out. One thing I was going to say, if your team is going to sleep, talk about that with your team captain, because you may decide that they want to sleep at a bridge or a checkpoint where you, the team captain, are at, and so that you could go, wake them up in 20, 30 minutes or an hour, whatever the time is. That as the team, if you're going to decide that you don't want to sleep at a checkpoint or a bridge, let your team captain know that, hey, we're going to go downstream about an hour and we're going to pull over and sleep for an hour. And so that they know to add that to the time of when they are expecting to see you. Because that's just one of those communication things that Spencer was talking about. So make sure you're communicating within the team, the racers, but then also that you're communicating with your team captains. Yes?
Since the water changes as you go down the river in terms of
Gonzales water supply or Cora water supply. Do people, a lot of people just use bottled water, or they just use that city's water?
Because of experience, I've done almost anything you can do over the last 25 years. I always make sure that I buy bottled water. One year we thought, I think we were in Cuero, and we got water out of one of the taps at Cuero, and they came into the next one, and they're like, that water was terrible, where did you get that? And we're like, Kay and I were like, ooh.
Yeah,
We'll fix it.
my husband's gotten so picky, it has to be Ozarka. Because the one time he got sick, it was some bottle that was a generic, whatever.
Yeah.
So now he's just like, go and buy all the bottled waters of Ozarka. And I'm like,
So like I usually get Ozarka spring water, and I get enough to last us all the way down. Or I plan out like, oh yeah, I can run into HEB in Victoria or HEB in Cuero, something like that.
But the thing to think about is, generally I'm generally running in the top 15, so when she gets to Cuero or Victoria, it hasn't been, 45 teams say, oh, I'm going to get water while I'm in Cuero and Victoria. So
nice.
The more you can carry and plan ahead of time, the better you're off. What she does, she buys it in those gallon jugs, and you can fit 8 of them, I believe it is, in the bottom of one of those ice chests. And that's how she cools the water down, so it's already cold.
That's another good thing is if you have 2 team captains and you take 2 vehicles, that you usually will have enough space that you can try to buy everything ahead of time and store stuff. So, anything else?
questions? Nothing online.
Okay, all right, I'm going to turn it over to Jay for
All right, so
Pee break?
that's a good idea. Why don't we all take 5 minutes or so for the cause? Everybody remember for the restroom word? We talked about that plenty. And make sure you signed in with the TCKRA for the... Yes.
For the drawing. You're going to be a drawing.
For the drawing.
Yeah. You have to be present to win. Okay, we're going to sign off on part 3 of the Safari seminar. We'll be coming back in about 5 minutes to talk equipment.